Mhm.
Wanna round me, catch a bout me, go get out me, yeah. Shawty, I'm a riding G, I'm a dime piece, I'm a ride.
Mhm. Good night, good night, good night, and welcome to Mike on the Mic. For those who coming in and looking into the broadcast, welcome to Mike on the Mic. I have a guest on the line. I've been promoting it all day. I don't want to keep him too long, but let me just set some context. Paul and I, we knew each other in a, let's say, a past life, but earlier on in my life when I was working at CNMG. Mike on the Mic is all about relationships, and I reached out to him, and he was very willing to come on and to join my community. So I don't want to keep him on too long too as well because the discussion is going to go far and wide. Welcome, Paul. Welcome to Mike on the Mic. How are things going
Hey,
on your
Mike,
end?
how you doing, man? Good evening to your listeners and viewers around the world. Congratulations on the show and congratulations on all your progress. I see you progressing. Congratulations on your MBA. You did tell me when we were at CNMG you're going to continue to work and improve yourself, and you continue to do that. I'm really, really proud of you. So keep up the good work.
So let me contextualize it, right? So to those who are now coming into the broadcast, we're broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube. Please message on the message board. Please comment. This is an interactive space, an interactive forum. But let me give you some context. So I remembered when you got sworn in as an independent senator. I was so proud because you come from the creative background, being producer, director. We used to work on shows together and that kind of stuff.
A lot of shows, a lot of
And what I,
long weekends.
a lot of long weekends and working and I know one thing I admire. I mean, let me set the stage. One thing I really did admire in the past, and I continue to admire the fact that you were very organized. And when he said he was going to do something, you used to. I mean, I remember when you say he's going to get something done, you get it done. Sometimes we go on a shoot. It started 10 o'clock. It might be 10 p.m. the night, but we make sure we get it done.
And if I have to pick up the broom and sweep it for myself, I will sweep it for myself. Whatever it takes to get the task done.
I totally remember that, and I remember as more people started coming to the life, I remembered for me personally, um, the first day I walked in, and it was how you say, a joint select committees where I saw you for the first
Mhm.
time after coming in, and I was at I'm at CNC3 at the time,
Mhm.
and I walk in and I remember feeling so proud because going from a television background and now being one of the persons in the driving seat in Parliament to help shape Trinidad and Tobago, I knew that we would be in good hands. And the fact that you were one of our own made me so much proud. And I remember at that instant is when I made the decision to go and do my master's because I remember
Excellent.
you said,
And congratulations. I'm really proud of you with that.
I remember you saying that you had to do some formal training and it didn't just come overnight. I mean, the Paul, like everybody knows, is not it was something that you created over time with your own persistence too as well. And I remember that and I took that nugget. Um and I want to give you that kudos and I want to say thank you for being a mentor. Thank you for being a light for young men like myself who could like you could be an exemplar to us and I remember that and I remember being in that parliament and saying, wow, if Paul could do it, I could do it. So
Well, yeah, my journey has been blessed in so many different ways by so many different people. So I didn't really get there on my own. I got some really humbling opportunities, and I always say, success is preparedness, hard work meeting opportunity, and you're preparing yourself, and the opportunities will come. Do good work, and opportunities will come. So it'll come.
and that's I think that's I did a rap and I kind of thank people in my life for helping me with the back because the MBA is very hard to do. You know, it's a lot of different things happening while doing it. And I remember saying at the end of it, preparation, I'm prepared now for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing in life is the
And sacrifice. People don't understand that.
yeah, and that was very important. All right, before enough about Mike. Why I reached out to you is I think it's very important for people like yourself and others to kind of give our community the support that we need right now. I mean, we're all under the COVID-19. I think we're up to 38 deaths now. I mean, condolences to the family. Um, but I wanted to reach out to you because you're also in the driver's seat too, directly and indirectly through Parliament too as well. And also your experience during COVID-19. So first of all, I want to ask the question, what has your COVID-19 experience been like? Because it's been very different for a lot of people.
Well, like everyone else, it is. People keep using the word unprecedented, but that's really the perfect word to use. It's never happened on this scale before. There have been outbreaks like Ebola that have been localized in parts of Africa. There's some outbreaks that happened in China, and people always talk about the bubonic plague and stuff, but it's never affected the entire globe. This hasn't affected the entire globe, and that's because the globe is so interconnected now with travel, with air travel and sea travel, and people moving around the globe between November last year, December and January, and going on holiday and going back to different parts of the world, and it's starting to manifest early February into March. I mean, we started the shutdown in April. So it has really affected the world in ways that we couldn't imagine. I mean, we saw some stuff on TV and in movies, and it still hasn't been like as profound as we've seen it affect our lives. And every jurisdiction has had to take decisions to protect lives and restrict movement and restrict contact and restrict infections. And that has had enormous effects on the way we just live. I mean, we can't touch, we can't hug, we can't go out. We have to wash our hands, which we should have been doing all the time, quite frankly. But we have to change our lifestyle in so many different ways. And it has impacted us economically. People have lost jobs. People are confined in the same space for long periods of time. People have a sense, they don't have a sense of what the future holds. And I had an interesting interview with clinical psychologist, Dr. Diane Douglas, just yesterday morning on radio. And she put it in an interesting way for me, and I have to give her credit because I didn't look at it like that. But imagine now your home has now become your home, in many instances your workplace, school for your children. It is a hospital of sorts for people who have been quarantined at home. It is a convalescent area for people who are suffering from other ailments. It is now a conflict resolution space, which it should have been before, because in some instances couples have had issues that they didn't resolve, and they're forced to stay together now. And the home has taken on so many different profound roles in a short space of time, and we all have to cope with this. Coupled with that, imagine little children, toddlers, young people under 10, adolescents in their teens, young adults, all experiencing it in different ways. Older people who are more vulnerable, who are the ones who are taking the brunt of it in terms of the fatalities, the mortalities. So it is really, really interesting and devastating in some ways. But in some ways, it gives us a chance to look at our value systems and what we thought was important before, and what may not be as important before. So, for me, I had to put systems in place to have a studio home. I have to have lights and things.
Yeah, I kind of see that little reflection.
And a lot of people have had to do that. In our workplace, in the radio station, we've had to put a lot of new systems in place to protect lives and protect employees and protect stakeholders and guests coming in. We've had to cut down on the number of people interacting. We have temperature testing. I have a temperature test engage home. So I'm so paranoid about my temperature that I'm always checking my temperature with an infrared thermometer, because you go out and you're trying to be safe and you wear your mask, and it has so much effect in your life in so many different ways. But we have to really give thanks for life and try and protect it at all costs.
And for those coming in now to the live broadcast, please message the message board. This is an interactive space. You can ask your questions. We will try our best to address them too as well. I wanted to bring different personalities, and I must say thank you. We say thank you throughout the course of the interview, because a lot of times people like to stay in the background. We comment on social media. We do a lot of negative stuff. But I think this now is the time for us to kind of change and get that and drive that conversation to the positive aspects, things that we could try to do now under the shadow of COVID-19
I
and
think
the
about Josie.
opportunities.
I see Josie just locked down there. And there's a lot of opportunity also. A lot of opportunity. I mean, I have had to do research and discover programs like this that we're using now, StreamYard and OBS, and become very conversant in all these things and become my own director, producer, editor at home.
Yeah.
So it's opened opportunities that, I mean, I lecture part-time. I have had to interface with students online and redo lesson plans and redo the way you engage learners, because now it's not just about lecturing. You have to keep them engaged by interaction, and it is you have to plan much more carefully. You have to learn different assessment modalities. So it is quite a lot. We've had JSCs online, through Zoom, you know.
Yeah, and I thought that is interesting because in the crisis, one of the things I remember from my entrepreneurship class, and I've been saying that all along through Mike on the Mic, crisis, if you look at it properly, creates opportunities. And we in Trinidad have been talking about digitizing the economy, e-commerce, a lot of different conversations, but we never really action it. And to me, this is the time to action a lot of those conversations, because now we really don't have a choice.
Yeah, it shouldn't have come to this to do it, because I mean, I have heard comments from since 2015, actually before that, but certainly I remember then Minister of Communication Max Coffey talking about a national digital grid, particularly for rural areas. I mean, 1 budget, 2 budget, 3 budgets passed, and it was never realized. So I think now we do have a choice. But you mentioned a while ago, crises bringing opportunities. Very often we look at just solving the problem and not moving ahead of the problem. You understand? And I think we need to be very, very careful not to just solve the problem and then the problem goes into something else and we just keep playing catch up. I think we have to look at moving ahead of the problem in terms of reimagining Trinidad and Tobago in all kinds of different ways.
And that's, I mean, going back to why I started the program too, because a lot of people have been asking me certain things privately, and I've allowed this as a portal to help me as therapy. But I also saw that we need to change the conversation, as you rightly said, and stop being reactive and more proactive, and not even just beyond proactive, problems with solutions, and not as a people. We complain a lot. I mean, you know me from the past. You know I was a big complainer. I think they used to call me the mighty complainer at one time.
Because you're such a perfectionist. You need to have everything right and perfect.
That's a nice way of putting it. But I think, you know, as I was trying to make the point of, maybe now is the time to actually action a lot of the solutions, a lot of the processes that we need. That I think in order to take Trinidad to where we are now and to where we need to be in the future, coming from an entertainment background and trying to diversify the economy, because the oil and gas sector is on its way down. Well, I mean,
it's struggling.
It's struggling.
It's struggling. Just say it's struggling.
It's struggling.
We'll struggle for a while to come.
What are your ideas for the entertainment industry in order for us to be able to leverage the digital space now?
It's interesting you asked that, because I don't think we needed COVID for this, because I think our entertainment structure has been what is becoming the norm in the US now. So much so that we don't sell a lot of records, we don't sell a lot of singles in Trinidad, because our entertainment base, I'm talking about the music industry in particular, what it has been based on putting out product and content and doing live shows, which is what the North American and European system is now, because most of the music is streamed. You could get it free. So the model has changed. And you know, many of our entertainers, and when we say entertainment, I'm talking creative here, depend too much on older structures as opposed to understanding that the internet has opened up a whole new market if they are organized and if they understand and become savvy and hire people who are savvy in digital marketing. So they sometimes misunderstand their role. They are creatives, they make the content, but hire people who can market the content and package the content and monetize the content for you, because you may not be as proficient in those means. I see someone's asking a question, Josie.
Yeah.
She's asking my opinion on our present cause in terms of rising cases and deaths. Do you think we need to shut down the economy? No. And deal with this curve and this increase. I think the shutting down the economy in government has to balance lives with livelihoods, and they're intimately intertwined. If we shut down the economy, it puts a strain on our ability to generate revenue and keep the healthcare systems going and keep livelihoods going. So while I understand we have to constrain movements, and we have to make sure people are safe and act in responsible manners, I don't think shutting down the economy in the sense that everybody stay home, know what's going on, is the way to go. I think it has to be carefully managed and a balance struck between protecting lives and protecting livelihoods, because you can't have one without the other. So that's my view on that. I think one of the biggest challenges is getting people to understand that you have to act as if everyone has COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times the authorities have to say that. Yeah. People must think I'm paranoid, but don't come towards me in the road.
Well, I'm glad we're meeting like this.
I cross the street. I social distance is not 6 feet from me, it's 10 feet.
Wow. Yeah.
I wash my hands all the time. I wash my face. People have to understand that presume any virus, and I could be wrong, I'm not a virologist, my understanding is it will eventually pass through the entire population, because that's what viruses do. The objective is that we may not be able to stop that, but we could stop the number of people getting sick at the same time to overload the healthcare system, which I think has been the strategy all the way through, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the world. And to do that, people need to act responsibly. Take responsibility for your action. Wear a mask. If you don't have to be out, don't congregate. I went for my evening run just now, and 25 people in one space exercising as opposed to spreading out. And I'm saying, what don't they get about this? You're exercising to stay fit and exposing yourself to a virus. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That could take your life.
Yeah, that could take your life.
That could take your life.
When is a whole open space and you all could disperse and do your exercises in different spaces. So I don't think people are processing, and particularly young people have a sense of invincibility. That ain't going to attack me because it's the old people disease. That is not so. The demographic is shifting. Younger and younger people are getting COVID, and in some instances dying. So Richard Bruce Murray is asking, what will be the outcome of the COVID-19 curve? If we manage it properly, we get through this, most of us alive. If we don't, we crash the healthcare system. That's the two options we have. Act responsibly, manage the progression of the disease to the population so that the healthcare system can manage it. Try and stay healthy, as many of us as possible, and we manage it properly. Otherwise, we be irresponsible, we go out and do foolishness, we don't wear masks, we transmit the disease to each other, and we mess up ourselves and our economy and our country. Choice is very simple to me.
My last interview, I tried something new. I said, let me do a pyramid scheme of love. So those who online, 3, 4, 5.
Pyramid scheme of love. Wow.
Share the live. Share so that we can get some more interaction, some more comments, so we could kind of take the conversation forward. But is it that we need to have a cultural or change management in our society in the way we think about stuff? Because as we were saying earlier on, we're very reactionary with a lot of things. And even now, as you're saying, you see, and I see too as well. Today was my first day back out to work from a week off. And when I was in work, that work environment is very different. But when I go out, because I work in news, when you go out, you see a different type of culture. Is it that culturally we need to sort of change and sort of make more better or responsible decisions? Because as you rightly said, you might be healthy, you might get COVID-19, but you carry it home to your grandmother, and she might survive it. Is it that we need that type of conversation moving forward more?
We've need a shift in our mindset in Trinidad and Tobago for a while. COVID has just shown us our deficiencies. I love Trinidad and Tobago. I live nowhere else, but we really need to take stock of ourselves and our sense of responsibility. We are very much a society that needs a big stick over us all the time. We can't tell us, well, you all behave and process it as well, be responsible to save lives. We seem to need a law for everything. We seem to need a police officer to guide us down every road in many instances. We seem to think that we are invincible. And as Josie said, God is a Trinity, so everything will be all right. Because I don't think we've had some national challenges, but not on the scale that shook us into reality. That, well, every person's action could affect every other person's life. Yeah. So I think we are generally, I don't want to say a lawless society, but a society that needs a big stick over us, hovering over us all the time for us to act responsibility. And I think that needs to change. I think very often we say, well, we're pointing the finger at everybody else, but we don't want to take responsibility for our own actions.
Yeah.
So it's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
easy
exactly.
back in Trinidad and Tobago. It's PNM fault, it's the UNC fault, it's the COP fault, it's Paul fault, it's Michael fault, it's
Yeah.
them we fault.
It's them fault.
Everyone taking responsibility for what is my part in it. And how can I fix it?
I'm going a little deep now. I don't even know if this is where the conversation should go, but I'm gonna ask the question because it came to mind.
That's the question.
You think this is the ripple effects of colonial masters and colonial rule? Or is it that we need to change that conversation now and say, you know what, 50 years later, we're all over. The time to change, we had enough time to say that was the grounds, that was the past. We need to think into the future, because I think if it is that we're not changing, we're going to be left behind.
Well, we can't detach ourselves from our past. And your past very often, in subtle ways that you may not consciously realize, influence nationally a national psyche about ourselves. And we very often are a product of this system that I believe, my view now, has been imposed on us in terms of our governance system. And I don't think the present iteration of our version of this Westminster system works for our configuration of society. So you see so many institutions not working, and people are getting frustrated, and people losing faith in institutions. And we just had an election, and it was divided by the usual race and ethnicity, and we don't seem to be breaking out of that because it's so easy for us to use what I think is probably our greatest strength that we take for granted, which is our diversity.
Yeah.
And the fact that we come from so many places, that we bring so many different perspectives and cultures and food and art and music from different places into this one space, that is such a wonderful thing that we take for granted. We have a sense of what Christianity is, Hinduism is, Islam is, Buddhism is, all in one space, all kinds of different foods and cultures and music. And we so easily let that diversity tear us apart. Isn't that ironic? And we really, I think it's all because of the governance system that was imposed on us as a conditionality, or one of the conditionalities for our independence from the colonial masters, that we have not changed. Yes, we became a republic, but we became a republic in law, but we became a republic in mind. Another issue that I think we really need to place some effort on is, who are we? Who are we? Who are we as a people? I don't think we've really come to a common space of who we are, and focus on the things that are common to us, that unite us, as opposed to our differences, which are really and should be all human beings. And it might seem idealistic, but we have not forged as deep a sense of patriotism and nationalism and who is a Trinbagonian as a whole, as opposed to you being from East Indian background, I be from Afro background, which is irrelevant in the long run. You understand? When you really think about it in the long run.
In the long run, no, because
on the larger scheme of things, I mean, that's not to say our lineage and our ancestry is not important, but is it important to the point where we are not focusing on and acknowledging and celebrating us as a people, as Trinidad and Tobago, as a little twin island state that is fortunately love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer. I don't know if we sit down and sometimes listen to that anthem, and what the words and the phrases mean.
Poetry of it.
And the profundity of it, and forged from the love of liberty. What does that mean? It means that we all want to be free and aspire in the fires of hope and prayer. With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand. I mean, it was written for the Federation, so it had islands in the Blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race, and to be the most profound part, find an equal place. And we haven't gotten to that stage yet, in my opinion. I don't think every creed and race has really found an equal place yet, because there's some institutions that need to change to make sure everyone has an equal chance.
And it's interesting that you're saying that, coming from a senator who's part of the government in terms of
Governance.
the governance system, the corporate governance system of the country. I'm thinking too as well. So to me, it is good to see that at least you're thinking in that space, because obviously I know you're not the person to sit back and allow certain things to happen. I remember you in the same, I think it was the Joint Select Committee. I think it was TNTech board was there. And I remember you drilling the CEO, and I was like, yeah, that's what we need. Accountability. Accountability is a very, very important part.
And that's great, accountability one. But when you look at entities like TNTech and TSTT and WASA, I think we have to reimagine them.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just about, TNTech should not just be about electricity from hydrocarbons. TNTech should be about innovation and renewables. And I was so happy today. I had a conversation with the CEO of the Energy Chamber, Dr. Dax Driver, who broke some news. He said BP and BG are investing, I hope I have them right, billions of dollars in solar energy in Trinidad and Tobago that should come to fruition by 2022. And I think that's brilliant, so that by 2022, we should be 10% of our energy needs is supplied by solar energy.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of thinking that we need. TSTT, to me, has the potential to be a Caribbean-wide carrier and a digital innovator. You understand? WASA should be thinking about, my MBA thesis was on the innovation that WASA could be.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, and when you think about it, when you do the research, hospital water, sterilized water is a specialty. Energy water is a specialty.
Mm-hmm.
Spring water is a specialty. And when you think of WASA as it is now, if WASA had an innovation arm or division, WASA could go into, in addition, of course, their first primary concern should be supplying water to everybody, ordinary water, which they have not been able to fulfill that mandate. But in addition to that, past that, what can WASA expand into once they fulfill their primary mandate? And we don't seem to be thinking past the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said earlier on, in terms of every state, I think National Florence is a good example of a state entity that's moved past the problem.
Okay. And
the mandate, not the problem.
And going back to what I was saying earlier on, and I'm glad that you put in a framework for the discussion. Is it time that we try to, not institutionalize, sorry, is it time that we start to implement systems that change management, to change the overall culture of Trinidad and Tobago, for us to embrace technology, embrace innovation, embrace new ways of thinking, and stop being so reliant on the old way and the old system, the 9-to-5 job, the traditional everything.
I'll probably get in trouble for this, but it stems from private sector is private sector and public sector is public sector. And there are issues with both. There's a school of thought that says private sector is a lot more efficient, a lot more focused on competence, and public sector, unfortunately still, and this is the part I probably get in trouble for, one of the problems with our state enterprises and public sector is the way we appoint boards and the patrimony that comes from political entities. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. In many instances, it doesn't work because boards are filled with people who have political patronage and they may not necessarily be the right people for the jobs. I'm not saying that's always the case, but sometimes, very often, that's the case. And the mandate of these entities generally is not very often targeted to making the entity self-sufficient and profitable and contributing to GDP, as well as a board in place. They have a political mandate as opposed to a national imperative. So I think the way we appoint boards and the accountability structures and boards needs to change in Trinidad and Tobago. In terms of boards should have, to me, and this is a crazy thought here, members of the government, members of the opposition, and professionals from the private sector. And I would agree that it should be majority government because they're the ones who the population have given the solemn mandate to run the country. So it should be prime majority government, but it should also have an opposition or two member, maybe an independent. And the independence would come from the private sector, the professionals who will bring the competence. And that will also have accountability because you can't pull no simidini. Because you have eyes at the board level providing oversight and regulation to the company. Taking it to the private sector, our private sector is very, very risk averse. I mean, they are significant contributor to GDP. I'm not dodging the private sector in any way. I think in many ways they uphold the economy by providing a lot of jobs and a lot of innovation and product and stuff like that. And I understand why they risk averse sometimes, because the facilitation of the state is not always what it should be. But I really think private sector needs to reinvest in sport and culture, and not only to get billboards and at games and stuff, arts and culture, sport, creative industries, and be the angel and venture capital investors in those sectors, because they will reap the rewards in the long run. Don't wait for Keyshawn Walker to get a goal to start investing in.
Or to give him a brand and to say, hey, look at how, look at, yeah.
In the next Keyshawn Walker when he's 6 and 7 and 8 years old. And yes, they will still sponsor youth league and this and that, but it's still not at the level when you see the profit margins. And I'm not dodging profit. Profits are great, but profits have to be balanced with reinvestment into society.
I'm glad with the conversation is heading, and I've seen a lot of people reacting to it and love the conversation the way it is. My community is a small community, so I don't do this for the shares, I don't do this for the likes. My return on investment is actually planting seeds of a different mindset and taking things. It's our responsibility to change it. I see, Paul. I see that, as you rightly said, the past is a context, and it allows for us to see and engage the new opportunities. And to me, quite honestly, I'll give you a little backstory. I mean, we haven't had a conversation in a little while. When COVID-19 hit, because I'm in the high risk in March, I asked myself, what's the legacy I'm leaving? And I've been in television for over 20 years. And when I look back and the stuff that I did, yeah, we did work and we did stuff, but what do you really change? How you innovate? Mm-hmm. What did we try new? And this is where this program came from. I know it's in the germination stage and we need to have patience and stuff going forward. But it's good to hear that you're saying that we need proper stakeholder management. When we're making decisions, the stakeholders must be involved in the decision, but it shouldn't be a puppy show. Yeah. We get your opinion and we move forward because your opinion
the word consultation in Trinidad and Tobago. That word called consultation.
Oh, we had a consultation before we made it.
We had 50 consultations.
Yeah. But really,
And then what?
How
much of the feedback did you really take? And what is the format of the consultation that people really feel that their opinions, and I'm not saying that everyone's opinions will make it onto the final document. People really need to feel included in the decision-making process past voting on election day. And that's what breeds the apathy. That's what breeds the wherever. And you really need every Trinidad and Tobago national invested. And I'm not sure that the systems and structures make people feel as invested as they should.
Because as you're saying, and it is a point, because I mean, being in the media, we see it all the time. And I'm glad that, and you know what I'm really, really proud for, Paul? The fact that you didn't stay in the background any longer and say, I don't want to get into government. You actually wanted to change and you become part of the system to change it from the inside. I admire that.
I didn't ask for it, but I've always held the view that I was on the radio for over 20 years talking about the problems. Oh my God, fix this. And then you're given His Excellency and then Her Excellency ask you to serve, because I guess they see something in you that they think is worthwhile, could make a difference. And then you say no. After that, you had to shut up. You're given the opportunity to make even a small difference in your country. And to me, this country has given me so much. This country has educated me, taken care of me. It's changed my mindset. I mean, education has been the key for me. I'm an advocate of education. I think everyone should avail themselves of this. So we have so much educational opportunity for so many years. Ask yourself, how many countries in the world where you can get free education, early childhood, primary, secondary, undergrad, part postgrad, and also part doctoral, tech voc. How many countries in the world can you get that? And it amazes me that while, and I applaud them, thousands take advantage of it, thousands don't.
Yeah.
And then the civil society, nobody in helping me. But there's stuff, and you mightn't want to go and do a degree, but there's training in tech, there's training in so many things that you can make something of yourself. But the other side of that is, and I'll be honest, the system also leaves so many behind that they don't feel confident that they can do it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're saying this. So, I mean, I can give you context for myself. I wouldn't say I'm the world greatest person in terms of spelling and grammar and that kind of stuff, but I do know I have a voice and I do know I have a perspective. And I haven't allowed that to hold me back. Obviously, I still know I needed training, or I continue to need training. But look, I reached a master level and it was sheer willpower. And it's the same thing as you said. I was in the background for so long as a cameraman and seeing the society and seeing things, being involved in certain things from a perspective of like a third person perspective. And I said, you know what, enough is enough, time to change, because I can't see the next 20 years after this Mike, 20 years doing the same thing again.
But what's interesting about that, and while I make the point that everyone should try to train themselves, passing judgment is always not the way to go, because not everyone comes from the same background. It means I had parents who were all about education. And not everyone comes from that kind of background. Not everyone has a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or godfather or mother who is there supporting you along the way. There are many, many young people in this country who come from really dire circumstances, who do have the guidance, who the system has. We lose between primary and secondary school. SCA, there are about 18,000 SCA, about 16,000 actually go to secondary school. Where did the other 1,500, 2,000 go to? What happens to them? And then during secondary school, there's another 700 to 1,000 that don't make it to Form 5. What happens to them? And no one is doing the kind of research to find out where these human beings are going and what is happening to them and what in the system failed them. We still have they fail as opposed to the system fail them mentality in trying to be going. That goes back to your point earlier about the kind of colonial mentality where it's always the person at fault as opposed to the system that's failing them.
And going back to that point, I'm not saying that it's all going through the school system is important, but what I'm saying is also having that energy or that drive to always continually better yourself in whatever circumstances.
It doesn't fall out of the sky. There's something or someone in your past, whether it be a mother, a father, both an aunt or uncle, who instilled that in you. And don't take that for granted. Not everyone has that. And so now we don't realize not everyone had that. And says, well, let me help and support you through this. And that is where I'm talking about. The system fails some of these young people really, really bad. And you know who picked up the slack? The gang leaders.
Wow.
Because the gang leaders give them a sense of belonging, a sense of tribe, all for the wrong reasons. Don't get me wrong. I'm not justifying gang work, gangland, before somebody went over it here. But that's why gangs thrive. Because gangs pick up the slack that society fails some of these young people, albeit for the worst reasons in the world. But that's why gangs flourish around the world. When society has a crack and someone falls through it, the gang leaders, they're waiting to catch them.
Wow.
Train them, and we're not identifying these cracks in the system and where these people are falling through the cracks.
Paul, you give me hope, because I see that you being in media for so long has allowed you the opportunity to lend that lens now in the system that you're in now in government, to change from a people position, and not just change for corporations or for private sector, but for everybody involved. And that's admirable to hear that you're thinking along that line, that understanding that way of thinking and trying to change. How important is it?
It's very easy to point a finger at someone and say you're a failure. It's a lot more profound to sit down and think, well, what happened in that person's life that they didn't seem to be able to get it together and find it? Because more than likely, if it happened to them, it happened to hundreds more. And if you could figure out that and look at the backstory and try to follow the person's trajectory as to why they are where they are without being as judgmental. I'm not saying we should accept media mediocrity by any means, but I mean, there's always a story behind every life, good and bad.
How important is mentorship in Trinidad?
Extremely important, because I benefited from so many different mentors in media and generally in my life. Mentorship is very, very important. And sometimes we take it for granted how much we can accomplish and how many lives we can impact positively by mentorship. And there's some great mentorship programs in Trinidad, but we need to expand them.
And saying that, I mean, I could give some insight to anybody looking in, and maybe some youngsters who may be looking on to the rebroadcast later on. You were my mentor for a lot of little different things. I mean, I didn't really say it, so, but I observed a lot of stuff. I remember you were very organized. You were always on time.
Yeah, I'm really in when it comes to time. Oh my God. I just been working on media for so long, but if you want to send me crazy, come late.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that, and when you have certain things to get it done, you would get it done regardless.
Yeah,
and,
I get it done.
And I see that from a position now. When I saw you in Parliament, it gave me a trajectory, because so much so that sometimes, like, I've dedicated so long to my current career, sometimes you get into this kind of comfort zone, and we were talking about that before the live, that people get into this comfort zone, and it's very hard for them to mentally break out of that comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it now to seize the opportunity to break out of the comfort zone now, especially given the opportunity that COVID-19, the shadow of COVID-19, has allowed for a lot of introspection, because a lot of the time you're by yourself, or you're not liming, you're not drinking, you're not socializing, you work straight home, taking protective measures, at least for those who on the mic. How important is it?
Well, in many people's cases now, they have a choice, because, I mean, COVID has put you in a position where humans will survive. Humans have one of the strongest drives human beings have built in, and I believe in God, is to survive. And this is forcing people to think out of the box in many different ways. But as you say, we shouldn't be as reactive as we are thoughtful and innovative and creative as to what we want the objectives to be and how we want to accomplish those objectives. Comfort zones are very easy because the system kind of facilitates that. You know, the system kind of tells you to be this way or that way, and the system that we're in likes people to continue along the path that they're in, and it's very difficult to break out. Generally, people will say, we're doing that for you, have it nice, you have a good job, you have a work already, you have a family, you have a car. But that has never been me, because, you know, you and I kind of crazy like that. I'm always looking for the next, because I get bored, and I, at this stage, it's not even about not being bored as opposed to trying to see how many young people I can inspire to do different things. So you find I'm doing a lot of different projects now with content in terms of creation, with showing people ways to make something that they can market. You know, a lot of it is online, and a lot of it is actually remotely, by just offering guidance in terms of people starting new businesses. And I think one of the things we need to focus on in Trinidad and Tobago, in addition to the training and the education, is really developing a business culture in the non-traditional demographics in this country. Because when you look at Germany and many of those European countries that have done well, they've been able to provide guidance, training, funding, mentorship in small, and medium-sized businesses, to the tune that it contributes up to 20-25% to their GDP. And it also takes the burden off the state in providing those jobs. It stabilizes the economy in a lot of ways, because when there's a shock in the other sectors, these sectors add buffer to the economy. And it gives people a sense of purpose too. You know, it gives people a sense of accomplishment, a sense of validation that they can do this. And we have a mindset of trying to be that only a particular demographic or a couple of demographics can do business, but that's not so. In many of those instances, those people grew up in families or circumstances where there was business around them.
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard the story about the two doctors and their two children, and what the two children became?
Mm-mm.
Two doctors had two children who became two doctors. because they grew up
Yeah.
at the dinner table talking about medicine.
Okay.
If you have families in business and you grew up at the dinner table talking about business and training them, not in an overt way, but when you're hearing about their stories in business and how they overcame, you're training the young mind, you're training the children. So business is not that foreboding for them because they grew up in it. And not everyone's family has to run business for the state to facilitate a stronger business psyche. And I don't think we have that in the non-traditional business demographics in Trinidad and Tobago. You understand? As a matter of fact, I say some carrying business at all, quote unquote. You understand?
I hear you.
Because they haven't been trained or they haven't had the mentorship or experience in running a business.
I think it comes down to support. To be quite honest, I think it really does come down to support. If you don't have that mental support or not even a system or process, it looks and it seems so far. So I can give you an instance. When I started my master's program, the first course I did really bad. And I was say, boy, why even bothering? And this is gonna take so much time, and it was the first course. But you know what I did? I know myself, so I took a student loan to get it done. So it had no looking back. And from that, I gradually improved because I tried to find out what was the process, what was I doing wrong, and having that process and having the family support moving forward. I had a conversation with an entrepreneur, somebody who developed entrepreneurs last week, and she was saying one of the main things that entrepreneurs, why is it that there's such a big gap in Trinidad for entrepreneurs, is that we don't understand risk and we don't understand how to take a risk. So there are entrepreneurs who will try a thing and then they jump out, and that was it. That's the last opportunity. They won't do it again because
they weren't mentored, and there was no risk assessment, profile assessment, and all the normal risk assessment business protocols you put in place. And in some instances too, you have to fail to learn.
Yeah.
We have to reimagine our mindset toward failure because we have a, oh my God, it's failure done. I ain't never trying that again, as opposed to talk to Bill Gates, late Steve Jobs. Apple failed so many times. Steve Jobs and what is it? Wieski? What's his name? I always forget his name. The other one failed so many times. Bill Gates failed, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey failed so many times, but never gave up. And one of the things you mentioned just now that's very important is that people need to believe in themselves enough to invest in themselves.
Yeah. And as I look to wind down the interview a little bit too, I know you're very much an advocate for domestic violence. How important now in terms of COVID-19, the shadow of COVID-19, and the fact that families are in such close proximities to each other and stuff like that, how important now it is to watch and manage your mental health, especially among your family members?
Extremely important. As when we started, I gave the reference from Dr. Diane Douglas about the homes and people being forced into these spaces, and the home is now a home and a school and a hospital and a business place in some instances. And the fact that people have been thrust into small spaces together for long hours, in some instances, not having resolved their interpersonal relationship issues. And it's coming out in higher rates of domestic violence. And I think we need to demystify and make domestic violence and other mental health care issues less stigmatized in Trinidad and Tobago, because we still have this mad mentality. There's no such clinical word as mad. You understand? And people need to feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, I am stressed, I am depressed, me and my wife or me and my husband not coping well, and reach out for help. And the help needs to be there. Before it gets to the critical mass of they explode, they have poor dysfunctional interaction skills and conflict resolution skills, and it ends up in a violent episode, which the antecedents have been read for months before. So I think demystifying it, taking out the stigma from mental health care, asking for help, making sure the help is available at every healthcare center, like just like you go for a blood pressure test. Yeah, if you didn't, and now worse than ever, many people are going through these throngs of early depression and they're just not recognizing it because they feel, well, add a man up another go through it, as opposed to going in and saying, listen, physically I'm not feeling physically sick, but I'm not feeling altogether here. I'm feeling out of sorts. I don't know what happening to me. You understand? Or I'm really having conflict, and I'm not feeling optimistic, and ask for help so that a professional can guide you through that. And for children too.
Yeah.
Because children, the signs that their sleep patterns change, their eating habits change, they act out in different ways, their interaction with their peers and their siblings change, and all the signs are there. We've had, I think, sadly, 3 suicides, including an 11-year-old attempted suicide in the last month alone. And it's not my guess, it's because people are stressed. COVID-19 is a significant, to me, I like the most significant global event I have experienced, and not necessarily in all ways. But I guess coping mechanism everyone may not have. And even that I still go through. Sometimes you just go through periods where you sit quietly and you try to meditate. Exercise has worked for me. The start of COVID, I decided, you know what, we locked down for 3 months, Then I start to walk and run regularly. So that has worked for me to give me a place to clear my head. But people need to find mechanisms to cope and de-stress and bring them to equilibrium.
I see the internet starting to give you a little bit of trouble here because the conversation went real deep. But that's what's happening in Trinidad. I mean, a lot of the infrastructure we have in place is not ready for what we need to be, and we need to change that.
We will get there. I'm sure we will get there now.
Just apologizing to the audience there for that. If you break up a little bit there, I think we lost one of the points you're making is about kids under this COVID-19 shadow being heavily affected, and for parents to have a different understanding when they see their kids act out. I don't know if you want to reiterate that point.
Yeah, and they need to talk to their children. They need to sit down, because this is not normal for a child. It is not normal for a human being, but an adult still has the kind of experience to process it a bit and cope a lot better. Toddlers, young children, 6 to 10, even adolescents are finding it very, very difficult, because we are designed as social creatures. And the effect on different demographic, different ages is different. So parents need to really observe their children, ask for help if you need help to help your child, because you can't help your child if you're falling apart yourself. And really pay attention to their children and talk to them and ask them if they're okay. Are you all right? You want to talk about anything, and find time to interact with their children, even though they may be tired, because they really, really need you right about now. Because we're going to see a lot of issues coming up in the next couple of years, and we'll wonder where it comes from unresolved COVID-19 issues.
Yeah. I think it's from extended time in using the devices, extended time in isolation.
Isolation is a big
isolation, yeah. I see it with my daughter a little bit too as well. I try to interact with her as much as I can, but I do see certain things too as well. And I notice, when she's not talking a lot, as she's very naturally a very talkative person, a very creative person. But when I see certain things, I know that there's an issue there. As I wind down the interview now, and final question to young people, we were talking a lot about mentorship and mentoring here on this conversation. What was that point in your life that you knew that? Let me rephrase that question. Looking back now, as where you are now, and if you were at your 14 or 15-year-old self, did you think you would be to this point? You would be where you are now?
I always did well in school. I mean, I have a really good memory. So I'm not saying this to make anybody not do it. It mightn't work for you. But once I'm in a classroom and I see the teacher and I hear the teacher, it sticks in my head.
Lucky you.
I don't have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning because it doesn't work for me. I have to understand it. I can't cram. Once I understand it, I'm fine. Right? So I realized it was much easier for me to retain stuff and do well in school. And as I grew older, I realized that once I liked it, I did well. If I didn't like it, I have a real bad mind. I'm not doing it. Right? And so mastering stuff like in radio and television came pretty easily for me because I processed pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of you talked about mentorship a while ago, and one of the profound effects in my life is, and I had a conversation with them just last week, and I actually teared up. It actually makes me feel very emotional. Is I met two professors, a lot of professors, because I'm just completing my PhD now. One name is named Dr. Rudolph Bailey, and one is Dr. Janine Montagano. And I have never met someone who has had such a profound effect on my life in terms of academics, because when he sat down and analyzed, and he's very, very brilliant, he made you, and it wasn't exclusive to me because I have a cohort of 13 others who are doing it, going through the process. And they are so encouraging and are able to identify your talent as a student and maximize that talent and identify your deficiencies and help you through them. And I wish every single student could meet Dr. Rudolph Bailey and Dr. Janine Montagano, because or they could train other educators, because they have such a profound effect on your life, that it changed my idea of what I thought I was capable of beyond measure. I don't think there's any, and I'm not saying this in a boastful way, but because of what I learned from him, because of what the confidence he gave me to identify what my talent was, there's no field of study I don't think I could master now, because he taught me how to use my talent most effectively. And I wish every single individual could meet someone like that in their life.
That's very important to me. We want to go and call him on the phone now and say, "Hey, Mike, my name is." What's my talent?
They're astounding at that. They're absolutely astounding at that. And then we still have a great relationship. We meet every Thursday and go through different stuff. And every time you meet them, you learn something new about yourself and about the world and about how your brain works and how your mind works and how to maximize that. And that, to me, has been priceless. So I could go through it. It's like they will sit with you and for a couple of weeks and identify what your greatest strength is for you, or a couple of your greatest strengths, and help you to use that to move your life ahead. And I think every single individual in life needs to meet someone like that.
Wow.
It has a profound effect in your life.
I've met a lot of people like yourself, Paul, during the course of my career, and I know there are more to come too as well, as I put all this love energy out in the universe here on Mike on the Mic. That's it for me.
Mike on the Mic, very smart.
Is it just that you say that? Because I have a few people who say, Mike, are you Mike on the Mic? That don't make any sense.
Actually, and you did your overlays yourself?
Yes, I did.
There you go. Figma? Figma?
No. I did Photoshop. Remember, from TV.
Oh, so you from that background. Well, I had to go on YouTube. Another thing, YouTube is great.
Knowledge management. Yeah, learn anything on YouTube. Yeah. I don't know if you realize it, right? So, because somebody was asking me about it, and because I'm trying to push Trinidad and Tobago message, as you a TV person, red, white, and black. I don't know if you're noticing on the screen.
That's the first thing I noticed.
Oh, at least you understand where it is. I
got it.
Yes, exactly. So because I want
to be any color, but you chose red, white, and black. So I thought it was deliberate.
Yes, it was. It was definitely deliberate, because I want the message to go out that Trinidad have positive perspective, a different way of thinking.
And so many of us love this country. So let me tell you, that's what I think, because of our love for this country.
Great. And I've seen Alyssa saying good night here too as well, and bringing up Paul. I guess that's it for tonight's show for here on Mike on the Mic.
Keep up the great work. This is a great outlet. Keep up the great work and keep doing your stuff. And I think it will go a lot further than you think in terms of inspiring people. And that every little bit helps. People look for big, gigantic steps, and people don't realize every drop, it might sound corny and cliche, but every drop actually does fill the bucket.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you say that, because when I started it too as well, my thinking was if I could save one life, that was my mission. That was
And,
job well
and,
done.
and filling by drop is more sustainable by filling by gush. It lasts longer.
I hear you. So that's what we can say. One like, one share, it all matters as we look to end this broadcast. Anyone who's looking on still, please share it. Please comment. The rebroadcast will be there. It's important that we build this community brick by brick, one drop, as Paul said. I've been saying brick by brick, we'll build the community together. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your time, Paul.
All right. Send me the links to the new ones coming up. I'll be glad to tune in.
I will. I definitely will.
And stay safe. Wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, please.
Everyone out there, yeah. I'm in
Right.
high risk, so as you rightly say, sometimes I go there and I'm so paranoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, I work in news too, and you know that too as well. And my job is to go out, so
Which
I
is
can't.
scary.
Which is very scary, and I can't refuse. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, and that's what I asked about
Yeah.
the mental health of it, because mentally we all going through it together, and want us to know that we are there to support one another. Thank you, Paul.
All right, Mike. Be safe.
Take care. Bye
All
for me. Bye for now, guys. Share the rebroadcast. Take care from me here on Mike on the Mic, and you all continue to have a good night. Bye for now.